Hi, Dennis here at Cappel Training and Shoeing. I want to talk to you today about hoof distortion and try to clear up maybe some misconceptions about what it is. Primarily, hoof distortion is this. The hoof wall, the capsule of a horse's foot, is a pliable entity. It will move under load. And so what does that have to do with distortion, hoof wall distortion? If the foot is too long somewhere, it's going to move out away from the foot itself. If it's in the front of the foot's going to come this way. If it's on the side, you're going to see flares out this way. If it's back here at the heel, like this model here is a foot that shows distortion. This is a kind of a typical of a thoroughbred type foot. It's got underrun heels, got a long toe. It's a very common thing that we see a lot of, and so basically though, we need to have some way of recognizing where the distortion is. I think it's pretty common in today's world, especially that we've gotten so used to looking at feet that are showing signs of distortion that the distorted feet appear to be normal. When a foot it shows no distortion, it's right back underneath the leg and it's supporting that horse as well as it can. And that's why, to me, that it's so important to learn how to recognize it and how to address it. I won't go into much detail about that here today, but you can go to my course. I've got a trimming course, an online trimming course, and an online shoeing course, and you can go there and educate yourself on what does it look like and how do we address it. I use a mapping system that you will learn if you go to these courses, and where the bars terminate into the frog, and the widest part of the sole and 1 inch behind the true apex of the frog will tell me where the center of this horse's foot is. And that center mark, I think, is probably the most important one to find, because it's going to determine where we place our breakover. The breakover will be in horses, average riding size horses. I'm talking about double aught to 1 size feet. That breakover is going to be 2 inches in front of that center mark. So it's important that we accurately identify where that center mark is, so that that our map, it tells us exactly what we need to do. 1 3/4 inches in front of that center mark is where the end of the coffin bone is. We need to protect that coffin bone. So the horse needs to have a lot of mass across this part of the foot here in order to help them, to protect them from the elements of the ground. But distortion comes, that's what we're talking about here in this video. Distortion comes from the weight of the horse, movement of the horse, and the ground. You see, as that horse moves, it's going to have a naturally occurring contrast between the movement and the weight of the horse, trying to get that foot to roll over like this. And we've got the ground pushing the hoof wall up, and we've got the internal structures of the foot coming down. So there's a naturally occurring conflict. So that makes distortion a normal part of hoof care maintenance. Those feet will not stay pristine. Right after a good farrier gets done, the foot will be in balance. But as that horse grows through a shoeing cycle, that foot most of the time will start to migrate forward and will start to distort through the shoeing process. Not very much usually, but it is a naturally occurring thing. It's when it's not recognized and not addressed correctly that we get into trouble. So let's look at some horses here. This is a horse here that I shod probably close to 8 weeks ago. So he is in need of shoeing, and you can see that his foot is starting to go out in front of his leg, and he's not terribly out of balance, but it's ready for him to be reset. In the reset process, we just take the shoe off and pull the foot back underneath the leg and go on, and he's right back good to go. Most of the time, distortion can be addressed in a trim and taken care of very efficiently. This horse here does have, he was foundered some time ago, and his shoes have been on maybe about 3 weeks. So his foot is in pristine shape as of yet. He doesn't need any. He doesn't show any signs of distortion. Go back here. These horses here do not have shoes on, and I have not trimmed them. This horse has some lateral distortion. You see how that especially that hind foot comes down, and then it flares out, and that is distortion on the very back part, the side of this horse. If you can get it up here in front a little bit, I think we can see a little bit. Shoot back this way. Okay, so the hind foot is showing more distortion in this foot, in this horse, than the front feet are. So he just needs to be trimmed, and he would be what I would call lateral high. In other words, the outside of the foot is longer than the inside, needs to be trimmed off. This horse here came in, and I have not done his feet. Somebody had trimmed just the toe off of this horse, and it looked a little bit odd, but functionally it served the purpose. It got the distortion in the front of this horse's foot taken care of. Now, because they didn't trim anything off of the sides now are starting to flare out. They're starting to distort more. So right now it's starting to split his hoof wall just a little bit. Right there you can see. And that's what people want to panic about, is when these chips and splits start taking place. But if you look back here on the back foot of this horse, it split and chipped, and now it's gone. So that was his way of trimming his foot himself. Now it's not as pretty as a good trim job would be, but functionally the horse chipped the distortion off, so now he's on his back feet anyway, he's in a pretty good position. That's what's happening right here. That'll just chip off if it's not trimmed, and more than likely everything will be fine. Now it is possible for those splits to come up like a hangnail on your finger, and to cause them some discomfort for a little bit. But at any rate, it'll be a temporary thing, and it'll be taken care of by one trim real nicely. This horse is in really good shape. As far as distortion goes, his feet are right back underneath his leg, and he doesn't need any attention. He looks like it hadn't been too long since he was trimmed. Okay, let's go up here. See, this horse, his front legs basically come out of the same hole, and his feet are turning out. But if you look up here in front of him, this horse, his knees turn out, his whole leg turns out. So if you try to straighten a horse up like this too much, they're gonna be sore. However, this horse has got quite a bit of foot on him, and he's starting to show an excess amount of foot going to the outside. So he needs a trim. His foot looks in pretty good shape, but it's right on a spot where it's going to start to run forward and start to distort more. This horse here, his feet are obviously long, and he is showing some signs of distortion, especially in those front feet. If you look coming down from the hairline, I'll pick that foot up and show you. If we come down to the hairline to right here, This is the true foot. Below that foot, it's starting to bend and come forward. So that's what distortion looks like. And as he comes down, he's starting to widen out and flare out. So this horse is needing a trim. Okay. The next horse here is in pretty good shape. He's probably just on the verge of needing a trim. You're better off to leave the feet a little longer than you are to trim them too short. A foot that's too short, you know, it doesn't have anything to protect the horse from the hard ground. And we're in a real dry time here, a little bit unusual for this part of the country. We're more like a desert condition right now, and because of that, the feet are really hard, and those hard feet are just more durable. They can take more than a hydrated foot can. It's in the real moist areas that you're going to have the most trouble, because that hoof wall, the whole foot's going to be softer. It's going to be more pliable because of the moisture content, and that's when the feet start falling apart. So that's what in this part of the country anyway, you're usually better off, if you're going to be trail riding where there's a lot of rocks and stuff, you're usually better off to shoe them, because the moisture content varies so much. You might be good now while it's dry, but if you go somewhere and it gets water, as it gets to stand in a lot of mud, that foot's going to get real soft. Then they won't be able to go out there. Where if you got a shoe, it just helps you to balance out that and keep that horse supported and keep that horse comfortable most of the time. So that would be my preference on that. If you know you're going to be trail riding in rough terrain, you're probably better off with shoeing. You know, other than that, you know, horses get along quite fine, quite nicely barefoot, if they're you know, got enough mass on the bottom of their foot to hold them up off of you know, to protect them from gravel or rocks. Or think about yourself. You know, if I take my boots off, I'm a little bit tender-footed because I'm not used to it. But if I got used to it, then it would be better. So, you know, that's personal preference. But you know, distortion is going to take place whether you've got shoes on or not. It's a naturally occurring thing that a competent, a good horseshoer will address every time they come to trim or shoe. So I hope you enjoy that. And if you like this, go to my website and check those courses out, because you'll really learn a lot, and it'll give you more details than what I've done. I use a mapping system to show me how to do it. I talked about it a little bit there on that foot when we first started, but the mapping system will tell me what needs to come off, what needs to stay. It'll show me where distortion is and where the true foot is. So, all right, thank you very much.